I stood outside of the Gin Mill pub in Toronto, wondering if I was at the right place. It was dark inside, and the door was locked. Had I come too early? Liam, an old colleague of mine, had asked to meet me there after he'd learned I was in town for business. It was starting to get cold, and I was growing impatient. He'd said 8, hadn't he? Well, it was past, and still no word. Just as I was about to leave, I spotted a chalkboard with the pub's logo in a little alcove next door. It listed the night specials with an arrow pointing to a black door I hadn't noticed earlier. Not that it wasn't there the whole time. It was just innocuous, and my attention had been on the glass door of the glass door front. I tried the handle, and the door opened to a staircase leading to the second floor. I began climbing the steep, narrow steps, boxed in by concrete walls, which blanketed me in goosebumps. My ascent up the creaky steps was punctuated by the sound and sense of a cold breeze coming in from the slowly closing door below. I couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive as I neared the top, but was pleasantly surprised when I turned the corner and saw the pub. It was warm. Not just physically warm, but warm in its color scheme and atmosphere. From a grey and black staircase to the reds and browns and ochres of wood, bricks and stone hearth. The transition was like driving through a snowstorm in the dead of night, and then finding the comfort of a grandparent's home. Above the bar were hanging lamps that looked like old-timey streetlights, adding to the inviting ambience. I was alone, except for the bartender, a tall young man with short brown hair standing behind the wooden bar. He greeted me with a nod, and then motioned for me to sit as he finished wiping the counter. "What can I get for you?" he asked. I glanced at the menu, but I already knew what I wanted. There'd been one name on the chalkboard downstairs that had caught my attention. "A campfire special," I requested. I didn't know what it was made of, but the name was alluring. The bartender nodded and turned on his heels while I fiddled with my phone to see if Liam had messaged me back. No texts, no calls, no message. It wasn't like him to run late, but I suppose he might have gotten caught in Torontonian traffic. I looked up briefly and saw the bartender manning a miniature blowtorch, or whatever it is you call those instruments chefs use to make creme brulee. He was roasting a marshmallow on a toothpick, which he then delicately placed along the rim of what I think was a champagne flute full of a dark liquid. He set it in front of me, and I reached over to taste. As soon as the liquid touched my tongue, I felt a chill run down my spine. It might be more mysterious to say it was some sort of sixth sense, a warning for what was to come, but the chill was very literal. Someone had opened the door at the foot of the staircase, and the cold night air had raced against and beat the person to the top. I swished the liquid in my mouth, trying to identify its components. It was smooth, a bit bitter like a green apple, and thin. Gin with a hint of lemon, maybe. I could only guess that the black hue came from activated charcoal. Well, whatever it was delicious and perfectly balanced. The creak in the steps drew closer and closer, until the sound turned into footsteps on floorboards. I felt a shadow on me, and, more out of instinct than necessity, I turned to look. Liam. He looked older than I remembered. Older than the 2-year span that separated us from our last interaction. It was something in the way his eyes were sunken in, and how his smile lines had turned into deep gouges, as though they'd been drawn over repeatedly for emphasis, like striking out an item on a to-do list. His skin was dry and pale, Nothing like his normal, oily complexion, and something else was off about him. It's hard to explain, but it was as though he were surrounded by his own light source, which stood in stark contrast to the light in the room. Now, I don't mean he was glowing, he definitely wasn't, but the yellows and reds in the room seemed incapable of penetrating him. Imagine watching a television show and seeing a black and white character suddenly appear on the screen, with no one acknowledging the difference between them and the world in color. Or, I suppose, in this day and age, a better comparison would be to imagine putting a sienna filter over a group photo, but for the filter to have skipped one person. Just one. Even though I wanted to question his appearance, I didn't ask him about it. Instead, I complained. "You're late." "I'm late," he answered. I looked down at my drink. If it were at all possible, I could have sworn the darkness had become even darker. The liquid had turned as black as the night sky outside the window, with swirls of deep ebony stretching circles from the sides to the center, like a spiral galaxy. I pulled the marshmallow from the toothpick and dropped it into the drink, hoping it would offset the darkness. Instead, it only added to it. My phone beeped from a text message, but before I could check it, Liam put a hand on my shoulder and sat down next to me. "Thanks for coming." I shrugged. "You look like you could use a drink. Allow me." I turned to the bartender, but he was gone. The counter stretched all the way to a brick partition, with a broad archway dividing the seating area from the back room, so I figured he'd snuck out on a supply run or something. No one in their right mind would leave a bar full of drinks alone with two strangers for too long. Little did I know, the first I'd seen of him would be the last I'd see of him, and yet, every once in a while, I'd glance at the counter and find a new drink waiting for me. "Guess I'll have to wait for round 2, I said, apologetically, before I sipped from my glass. The sweetness of the floating marshmallow had seeped into the drink, adding a new layer to the taste. It reminded me of burnt caramel coffee and its rich, creamy, almost woody flavor. I could feel Liam's stare locked onto me. There was thirst in his eyes, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what kind. "Have you ever watched someone die?" Liam's question made me swallow down the wrong whole. I coughed. "Can't say that I have." Liam leaned closer. "Have you ever wondered what it feels like?" "To die?" I finished my drink, and as soon as I put the glass back on the counter, my fingers brushed against another. There were 2 drinks waiting for Liam and I might have caught those red flags if I wasn't so preoccupied with Liam's bizarre line of questioning. I try not to think about that. "Did you know you can feel it happening?" Liam spun a finger around the rim of his glass. "You can feel the moment the light fades from your eyes. It's like a veil falling." Somewhere in the distance, I could hear my phone ringing. Good to know," I answered, nervously reaching for my drink. I was no longer sipping from it anymore. I was guzzling down mouthfuls. I can't even explain why I was so scared. Liam's serious expression, his grave tone, the way the light refused to touch him. I didn't know. Something just felt wrong. Liam continued. "It's cold and numb. Your brain shuts down the pain receptors one by one. They go in sectors, like a city blacking out one block at a time. Death is the moment of panic when the light fades. That split second of worry stretching out for an eternity. I started on my third drink, begging for the soothing effects to kick in. But instead of a nice buzz, I felt dizzy. A bit deep for me, man, I said, hoping I could shut down the strange conversation we were having. How's work? And in the empty panic, we seek out friendly faces. That's what having one's life flash before their eyes is about. Searching through a mental registry for people we know are in the afterlife. People we think will ease away the panic and fear. Oh, great, I thought. He wasn't letting up. He went on. We're told that in death we'll reunite with our loved ones. He paused briefly, taking a sip of his own drink. I didn't see him swallow, but when he opened his mouth to speak, it was empty. In a way, we do. In many ways, we don't. Everything, every one, becomes muddled together. Not just humans. Everything that lives eventually dies, and they all go to the same place. I thought I heard my phone again, but the sound was warped. It sounded far, far away, like it was in a completely different room and submerged underwater. In my peripheral vision, I could have sworn the night sky was reaching through the window with tiny tendrils, but every time I looked properly, all I saw was a normal sky with flakes of snow gently wafting towards the earth. Liam inhaled and exhaled. Could you tell your mother from a blade of grass? If your mother's soul was indistinguishable from grass. And then, think how much grass there is. Every single blade was alive once. They're all there. Could you find your mom if she was submerged in an ocean of grass, and the grass and she were just blackness? I sighed. Oh, listen, Liam, you're kind of freaking me out. They're all muddled together. Is this some sort of Halloween prank or something? Because it's not funny. No one stands out. It's all just the mass. A wriggling mass of chaos, fear, panic. Soon, there's no you and them. There's just the mass. There's everything and nothing folded into one. I stood up, but I felt like I was walking on the legs of a newborn foal. I gotta go, I stuttered. You will understand soon, Liam said. The unnecessary inclusion of the word soon pushed my discomfort over the edge. The pub didn't look quite so inviting anymore. The warmth from earlier had been tainted somehow by Liam, his desaturation bleeding into everything. The lights were bluer, the wood grayer, and the temperature colder. I had to get out of there. I could tell Liam was still talking to me, but I didn't listen to a word as I bolted down the stairs, taking them two at a time. I think he was still going on about the mass and darkness and chaos, but, well, I don't know. I felt instantly safer as I passed through the threshold. The world became vibrant again, or as vibrant as a dark, snowy night can be. I checked my phone and saw I had a text message. One missed call and one recorded message. The text was from Liam and simply read, "Sorry, almost there." I played the recorded message. Liam's voice greeted me apologetically. It sounded lively, completely different from the deadpan tone of the Liam I'd just spoken to upstairs. I can tell you what it said verbatim, because, well, I've listened to it so many times I know it by heart. Sorry, on the 401. Damn snow. Traffic's clearing up. Should be there soon. I'm so sorry for keeping you waiting. First round's on me, okay? His car roared as he accelerated, and it was at that moment that I saw the chalkboard by the gin mill's door. Liam's continued apologies faded into background noise. The white, chalky words, "Closed. Family emergency," made me stagger backwards onto the sidewalk. Conveniently placed lamppost keeping me from falling into the street. I was trying to process everything, only vaguely aware of the screech of tires and the sound of buckling metal coming from my phone. There was groaning. There was low breathing. And then there was silence. I looked up at the second floor window. I saw the faintest of blue glows coming from inside, like an after-image on a television screen. And in that light stood a dark, vaguely human-shaped mass, staring back down at me. And the light blinked out of existence.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.